This video will deal with formatting of a cell, and more specifically, how we address the issue of changing the content so that the content represents the type of content we're looking at, whether it happens to be text or it happens to be a very special number such as a monetary value, or it happens to be a date or a time or a percentage, or it could be a fraction. Whatever it happens to be, we can change that very quickly and easily. So I'm going to run through this a little quickly. I'm going to click on A1, and I want you to remember one thing as an absolute. Every cell by default is always general, which simply means that it doesn't represent decimal places unless the value of the decimal is greater than 1 or greater. If it's a 0, it will not show it. So I'm going to prove that very quickly. I'm going to type in 12.00, and when I press enter, you'll notice that the 00 have gone. However, as just said a moment ago, if it's greater than 1 or 1, then it will show it. So let's just put this back in. I'm going to go up here to the formula bar, put in a decimal and a 01. And this time it shows it. The problem here is that as we continue down this column and I type in values, they're going to be inconsistent. The decimal will be in different places or not at all, and it makes it difficult to read the content that's in there. It would be nice if we could actually set it up so it would always show me a certain number of decimal places. Well, we can do that as well. So I'm just simply going to delete that content because it is general, and I'm going to select the first 3 rows here, and I'm going to change it, and I'm going to come up to the Home tab in this category number, and I'm going to choose the drop down arrow beside general, and I'm going to select number. By default, it will automatically put in 2 decimal places, so I don't even have to put a decimal. So if now all 3 of these have the same type of formatting, if I click on another cell, you can see it's still general. So these 3, and I'm going to type in 1, 2, 3. I'll press tab to enter the value, and you notice there are 2 decimal places there. So it automatically adds it whether or not I choose to enter any content into it. So let's just take that out for a moment because I'm going to change this again. I'm going to put in the number 1 because I also want to show you that we can do something else here. And that is we can choose any format we want. But there are some conditions. And the first one I'm going to show you is for monetary value. There are 2 possibilities. One is using currency, which will put a dollar symbol right beside the number 1. So let's do that. I'm going to come over here and just put in the currency symbol. There we go. So now the dollar symbol is right in front of the number 1. But there was an alternative here, and that was using accounting. When I use accounting, it will put the dollar symbol on the far left-hand side of the cell. Kind of makes it easier for reading large numbers within a column. It makes it a little easier to actually distinguish them. The dollar symbol, after your eyes get a little tired, could eventually begin to look like a 5, or could even look like an 8, or even a 3, depending on how tired you really are. So if I click on accounting, now you notice that the monetary symbol is against the left-hand side. Of course, we can change this even further. Now, this one you have to keep one thing in mind. I'm going to click on date, but there are 2 different types of date. One is a long date and the other one is a short date. The biggest difference is it will show you the name of the month in a long date, whereas the short date will not. However, I also want you to remember the following. If there is a number in that cell, then it will assume that that number is a date. One of the beautiful things about this product is that it can add, subtract, multiply, and divide dates and time. So this means that it sees the date as an actual number. But Microsoft chose a very specific day as day number 1. And that's why I typed in number 1, because I want to show you the first day as far as Microsoft is concerned. Any date that is in a negative will go in the opposite direction. So number 1 is January the 1st, 1900. So when I convert this number 1 to a short date, it automatically changes it to January number 1, 01, day number 1, and the year 1900. And we can see that in the formula bar. If I just highlight this for you, you can actually see it up here in the formula bar. It is January the 1st, 1900. This is actually to our advantage because it simply means that we can add, subtract, multiply, divide. We can do all of those different things within a cell, and we can use dates to do that. Now, if I wanted to change this to a long date, it's very simple. I simply come back in here and choose long date, and of course there we are, January the 1st, 1900. So if I wanted to know what today's date was as far as a number is concerned, that's actually quite easy to do as well. Now I'm just going to convert this to general for a moment. I'm going to type in the date today, but I'm going to use a little formula, and I'm simply going to say today. Now anything between those brackets is called an argument, and there is no argument for today's date. When I press enter, it'll automatically substitute today for the actual date of today, which happens to be April the 28th, 2020. And of course this is a short date, so let's make it a long date. So I'm just going to convert it to a long date. There you go, April the 28th, 2020. But I'd like to know what the number is, because I can, believe it or not, subtract January the 1st from the 28th. And all I need to do to see what the number is that it would be using is to go back to general, because this is the 43,949th day since January the 1st, 1900. So there have been 43,949 days in between the two. So this is how Excel actually uses dates and how it can actually convert them, add, multiply, divide, and also subtract. Now, of course, we can actually go a little bit further, and we can also have time. So we could have time in here. We can have percentages. We can have fractions if we want a fraction. Just opening this up again so we can see those categories. We can have scientific notations, again, depending on how many decimal places you'd like. Text, because we can do a lot with text as well. There's a lot of formulas. Special, we may want to type in a phone number without putting the hyphen in, without putting the brackets in, and just type the number and let the computer do it for us, set it up properly. Social Security number, because it is broken down into small segments of numbers and letters, you could actually have it do it by itself. Or perhaps there's something else like a driver's license or some, let's say, item number in an inventory. Well, we can use custom for this and set this up as well. It looks a little daunting. It looks almost impossible to figure out, but oddly enough, it's really, really simplistic. And it's just a question of playing a little bit and figuring it out. So hopefully this helps you a little bit understanding about the different numbering schemes that we can use for our formatting in the background and how we can set that up and why it stays in there.